Can you hear me from the back? Yeah, good? Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So good evening. My name is Andrzej Kamiński, and on behalf of the organizers of this event, I would like to welcome you to our October meetup. Before we jump to our speakers and presentations, I just want to touch base or touch point on one thing. This meetup was created at the early stages of DevOps. It was created about 8 years ago, and it was created by people like you, for people like you. And the primary goal of this meetup was to popularize DevOps as such, but also learn from each other, look at what technologies are coming, what problems we have when we are implementing DevOps within your organizations, or even more important, how to sell it to executives. What the benefit for the organization to start using DevOps. And 8 years later, where are we? Recently, I've seen the Puppet Labs report on the state of DevOps, and they say 80% of organizations right now implement or use to certain degrees DevOps. And one of the presentations will be actually about this particular topic. But what is important, DevOps became really a household name. As a matter of fact, if you look at this meetup, we've got almost 3,000 people just in DC that actually joined this meetup and are actually on our list. So the thing is that the world is changing. The DevOps was great in let's say 2016, 2017. Where is going to be tomorrow? That's a great question. And especially with emerging technologies like AI, for example, DevOps is going to morph and move further. So here's the question to you, because this meetup is ready for you. We are entering or getting close to 2025. What you would like to learn in 2025, what you would like to hear, and what type of organizations you would like to invite to those meetups, to our next events that would benefit you personally and would benefit also the organization. So there is one short survey. It has only one question, but you can provide many answers as you want. And you can actually do it in two ways. The hard way, you can actually type this particular address with a code, or the easy way, you can actually scan the QR code and provide the answers. So I would like to really encourage you to do that, because you're going to help us to actually deliver the stuff that you're really interested in. So with this, let's move to our presentations. We've got the two presentations. The first one will be from Benchmark Recruiting, and Paul Davis is going to tell us about what is the current market, what employers are looking for, how you can actually grow, and where you'd like to go. Our second presentation will be from PagerDuty, and PagerDuty will be talking about the core essence of DevOps, which is providing the entire service. So, Paul, starting with you. Thank you.
That handsome man. First thing I tell you about recruitment, keep your LinkedIn photo updated. The ravages of time before I was married and had a child. So, like Andre said, thank you very much for inviting me over. I'd like to thank the organisers, and basically I'd like to introduce myself to you. So, my name's Paul Davies, and I'm an account manager with Benchmark Recruitment. We're what you call a boutique IT recruitment firm based in the Lower Mainland. We're in Burnaby, but we support mostly Western Canada. We've got offices, like I said, here in the Lower Mainland, also in Calgary, and we've got a growing presence over in Victoria. So, a little bit about me, as you can hear from my ridiculous accent. I'm from East Vancouver. No. Well, originally. 11 years ago when I first moved over from Australia. Grew up in rural New South Wales on a horse farm, and I've been over here 11 years now. You know, with my recruitment experience, it actually started in Australia, working for the CSIRO, which was our research organisation, science and research organisation. And now I've been working for over 3 years now in IT recruitment here in Vancouver. And, you know, one thing that I've always found about recruitment is that it's never boring. It's always fun. And it's also bloody difficult. And that's why I love it. You know, and there's one reason why I like Benchmark. You know, like I said, we're boutique. We're not like these big agencies. Which means that we're agile. And it means that, you know, what I like is that we've sort of bucked the trend of what a lot of recruitment agencies have done, where they've become transactional. You know, I'm sure a lot of you here have dealt with recruiters and not gotten calls back. We're trying to not do that, and we're going back to that sort of that white glove service, that sort of treat candidates well, treat clients well, because I feel as though when everyone's treated well, we all do well. Okay, so what is DevOps? Honestly, I'm not sure. Andre, where are you? Can you help me here?
Oh, DevOps. Okay, well, you ask 3 people, you get 4 answers. But I can actually just say one thing. The way how I define it, especially in the organization I'm working, so DevOps really consists of culture, and that's the most important. Culture starts DevOps and ends DevOps. Automation, lean processes based on Agile, metrics, ability to measure and track progress, and ability to recover. If there is a disaster or problem or failed deployment, we are able to recover rapidly. So all of them actually are interrelated and linked.
Perfect. Okay. I wasn't expecting an answer, but I'm so glad that I actually asked.
No, I'm prepared.
First thing, you know, jokes aside, guys, the first thing I'll tell you is that I'm not a technical expert. I work in recruitment. I work within IT, and I know enough not to sound incredibly stupid, but I'm not going to lecture you guys on the technical aspects of DevOps, because I'm not the expert. You guys are. So, for this presentation, I really just want to inform you about the difficulties of recruiting within DevOps. You know, I want to let you know about our methodology of finding candidates, and you know, and helping our clients find the right candidates, but also helping candidates find the right positions. You know, also I want to give you some information on trends within Western Canada and within that market, tips to be successful in the Lower Mainland when recruiting for or applying for DevOps positions. You know, and finally, I'd like to let you know, why you should use recruitment agencies to help you find your next position. Or if you're a hiring manager or someone looking for people, how a recruitment agency can save you money and can help you find the right candidates. So, for this presentation, I reached out to some of my trusted clients, trusted candidates, and a lot of them were from the best environments in town. And I asked them the same questions. I asked them, what do you believe DevOps is? And what's the biggest problem for you recruiting people within DevOps? Now, the answers they gave me were varied, very eye-opening for me. A lot of it I didn't really understand, but I learnt a lot. But one of the things that they said that was a constant was that there wasn't a firm definition. As Andre said, what he believes is DevOps. What Andre believes is DevOps is different to what someone out at Electronic Arts is DevOps, and what Best Buy thinks is DevOps. It's all different, and there are different flavours, and there's not one definition for it. But through, of course, using AI and speaking to different people, I've tried to come up with a little bit of a definition that my Bachelor of International Politics mind could understand. So for me, the best definition is that DevOps is a blend of development and operations. It's a cultural and technical movement aimed at unifying software development, dev, and software operations, ops. That's clever, isn't it? To improve collaboration and productivity. Essentially, breaking down the silos between the two teams, fostering a more integrated approach to software delivery. DevOps, like you said, DevOps emphasises automation, continuous integration, continuous deployment, and monitoring to streamline the software lifecycle from development to production. By adopting DevOps practices, organisations aim to deliver high quality software more quickly and efficiently. This is why 80% of companies are now adopting DevOps. So, but why? Why is it so hard to define DevOps and therefore recruit for specific DevOps roles? As with all things, that evolve in nature as a part of the human construct, changes occur and branches appear sprouting from, the original idea and the methodology. This is where, we get the different flavours of DevOps that give colour and depth to that methodology. Development-focused DevOps, the emphasis on integrating development and testing to ensure rapid code releases. Operation-focused DevOps, prioritises automation and efficient monitoring to enhance system reliability. Security-focused DevOps, incorporates security practices early in the development lifecycle. You've even got DataOps, applied to data management and analytics to improve the quality and cycle of data analytics. So, we've sort of defined what DevOps is, or what it can be, But what are the difficulties in recruiting for DevOps roles? Not just for me, the recruiter, but for clients like yourselves and for candidates like yourselves. I first think we need to look at current DevOps, the hiring landscape, and see what the trends are. So, did a little bit of digging. DevOps roles in the Lower Mainland have grown over 40% in the past 3 years. That's despite mass layoffs in IT. 40% in a bearish market. That's incredible. DevOps is no longer just a popular new thing in software development. It is the main thing in software development. It is a main methodology now. The thing about this is that this puts a huge stress on the candidate pool. And the ability for hiring managers and recruiters to find top talent, as there just aren't enough candidates out there anymore to go around between big agencies and the big companies. What we're finding most in demand is certain skill sets. When recruiting for DevOps roles, we're looking for different types of experience, different types of certifications. One of the biggest ones is cloud technology. Everyone is using cloud. So especially with your two major ones, your AWS and your Azure, and then to a lesser point, GCP. But also, different tools. Tools that support Kubernetes and your CI/CD pipelines. Like your Jenkins and your GitHub. Both of those tools, support automation frameworks in place, and this setup allows developers to quickly test and share the code. In a production-like environment, which makes it easier to catch errors early in the development lifecycle. So this is what software shops and employers want. They want code done quickly, and they want code done accurately. So, what does this mean for recruitment? Honestly, it means it can be bloody difficult. It's bloody difficult to find good candidates for complex roles. There's going to be a lot of difficulties in successfully recruiting great talent. One of the biggest difficulties is, as I said before, with the growth of DevOps, there's high competition for DevOps professionals, and that means that both recruiters and companies need to work together to work on new and different strategies to find their diamonds in the rough. Gone are the days where these amazing candidates apply for your job posting and you can farm them. You need hunters, you need people to go out there, approach people, go to networking events like this. Those are the only ways that you're going to be able to find these people. You need to pursue them. DevOps engineers need a mix of skills in development, operations, and sometimes security. Finding candidates who excel in all of these areas can be tough, very tough. Like I said, DevOps means different things to different people. And finding people with the exact skill sets that employers are looking for is really hard. The different flavors of DevOps means that finding that perfect candidate for your job, can be very difficult. And you're looking for that unique individual that may not be readily available at the drop of a hat. Many of these DevOps roles require hands-on experience with specific tools and technologies, which can be hard to find in candidates. One thing that I've never taken into consideration is that DevOps isn't typically taught as a separate discipline in schools. So for you to learn DevOps, to get exposed to it, there's a lot of self-teaching. There's a lot of short-term, eight-week education that you can get your diploma and your certifications. This puts a huge onus on candidates to constantly be retraining, to update, because if you don't, you're going to be left behind. And it also means that recruiters have to keep abreast of these new trends as well. So we can be ahead of the curve and build the appropriate networks for these ever-evolving technologies. Also, there's always the inevitable turnover. People will find other opportunities. And ambitious developers will leave to experience different technologies in a perceived more prestigious environment. When I first started in recruitment with Benchmark, they tasked me to find 3 software development managers. And it was a great environment, very prestigious company. And when I started my search for software development managers, I found that over 50% of all software development managers in the Lower Mainland worked for Amazon for ridiculous money. They weren't going to leave. Now, do you think that all of these software development managers, do you think that they were brought in? They were brought in from Toronto, they were brought in from overseas? No, a lot of them were locals. It's a brain drain from other companies and other agencies. This causes stress in the market, and as a business you have to contend that there will be other companies that will want to entice your employees and to move away, and that you'll need to recruit accordingly. So how do we as an agency recruit for these DevOps roles? In an ever-evolving market with ever-evolving technologies, with candidates that are moving around constantly. Well, we combine traditional sourcing with modern technologies to find both active and passive candidates. We use tools to hunt and actively approach candidates that you wouldn't usually find via traditional farming and job posting. We look in different non-traditional locations to find the best candidates. We look at not just LinkedIn and Indeed. We have our own comprehensive database that we can call upon to call already vetted and known candidates. If we've not worked with candidates in the past, we make sure that we vet them. We ask them, we grill them on their technical skills, even though it's very hard for me to sometimes understand, but I still try and grill them as best as I can. We ask them about their job history, the reasons for leaving past positions, so we can ensure that there'll be a good culture fit, because there's more than just technical skills when you're applying for jobs. There are the soft skills, the communication skills, and ultimately culture fit is huge. This comprehensive vetting process means that we're able to find the best suited candidates for the role and give them every chance of obtaining that role. Now, I'm sure that for a lot of you, this is what you came in for. You wanted to hear, what can you do to stand out from the pack? Now, when I first thought about this, I wanted to tell you to, stay ahead of the curve, get certified in new technologies, embrace AI. Once these new roles come out, you can wear your certifications on your chest like a badge of honour, like a war hero. And then I thought about it. It's really reactionary. Like DevOps was the new fad, 5, 8, more than 10 years ago. AI is that at the moment. And yes, you do need to be, you need to be ahead of the curve, and you need to get that certification. But everyone's doing that. Everyone is getting these certifications. It's not putting you ahead of the pack. It's keeping you with the pack, which is important, because if you don't get these certifications, you'll definitely stand out from the pack, but not in a good way. So one of the ways that I like, and that I think sets people above from the pack, is what you guys are doing right now. Networking. Meeting people. Meeting hiring managers. Finding out what the skills they want. Finding out who they are, what companies are hiring. Engaging with other agencies. We can educate you on who's hiring. We can educate you on, on how to write your resume, interview technique. Attending meetings and networking events like this does set you away from the pack. Meeting the very people that are hiring, shaking their hand, seeing their face, because they'll remember you. They'll remember your face. They won't remember a faceless resume. As a recruiter, I would love every candidate just to work with me. That would make me very successful, and I could retire early without a crippling mortgage. Yeah, that'd be nice. However, I would recommend anyone here that is new to Canada, that is looking for a new job, reach out to as many different agencies as possible. Be agnostic when it comes to recruitment agencies. Like I've told some of you already this evening, we work at Benchmark Recruitment, we work with some of the best and biggest companies in Vancouver, but we don't have access to every single job. And for you to get exposed to 100% of the market, you need to reach out to these different agencies. Like I said before, getting certifications, continuous training, and getting hands-on experience is very necessary, and it is important. But it's not what will set you apart from the pack in the long run. The professional relationships that you build, that's what will set you apart, and that's what will give you success. So, has anyone here worked with a recruiter in the past? Okay, a couple of hands. A couple of very shy hands. How was your overall experience?
For me, it was good. And he got me a good position and a good offer, but because of my nationality, I couldn't connect with that company, I couldn't work for that company.
Okay.
So they reject me at the final step. But it was a good experience for me. He prepared me for the interview. He gave me some of the questions that they want to focus on that technical skills. Yeah, overall it was a great experience.
And that's what you want. And that's what you want in a recruitment. You want someone that is a partner for you as a candidate or as a client. So how do we work with recruitment, with recruiters and recruitment agencies? One of two things will happen. You either reach out to me or I reach out to you. I am always open to people to email, call and reach out. I am always happy to take those calls and build those relationships. Especially if you are new to Canada, like a lot of you, I was new to Canada 11 years ago. And I know that it's hard to get your first shot at employment in Canada, so you need to reach out to as many agencies and as many people and as many companies as possible. You need to cast your net wide and reach out to as many people, because this means, especially if you're looking for work, it's imperative that you update your resume, that you update your LinkedIn, you stay relevant. Because if you start lacking, you'll be like my handsome picture, you'll sort of become a little bit outdated. The relationship that you have with your recruiter is going to be one of collaboration, and we rely on you to be honest with us. We want you to answer questions about your experience and honestly, because we're going to be selling you to clients based on your experience and what you tell us. We can still give you technical tests, but we want to build this relationship of trust. We may ask you to tailor your resume to highlight certain parts of your experience. Please be open to this. This is part of the vetting process for us as well. How do you take direction? What are your communications like? This is all part of how we find the right job for you. We've built relationships with hiring managers and companies over many, many, many years. You know, with the knowledge that we have, we will impart to you to give you the best possible chance to success for our clients that are out there. There are many ways that we can work for you. For many of our clients, we've applied to different RFPs. That's how we started working with WorkSafe. You know, we are an approved vendor, one of many. On the other side of the coin, we do have clients where we get exclusive business and there are no other agencies working for them. Both types of relationships have their pros and their cons, but the one thing that stays the same is that we want to have a very close and intimate relationship with you, so we can better understand your business and recruit quicker and more successfully. The more we understand and know about you and your business, the easier it becomes for us to find candidates for you. In essence, we want to be an extension of your business. That we know your business so well that, you know, and we know your business so intimately that candidates don't even see us as an agency, they just see us as your HR. You know? And as an account manager, that's my goal with every single one of my clients. Once we become the extension to your business, then we can actively become brand ambassadors for your team and ultimately your company. When we speak to candidates about your role, you know, we want them to be excited because we're able to convey the best things about your company and the best things about your team. So, what are the benefits of working with us from a client's perspective? Ultimately, we can reduce hiring time, speeding up hiring processes without sacrificing quality. We can find you quality talent quickly so your projects aren't bogged down and delayed with staffing issues. We can cost save. You can minimise your hiring costs by reducing time to fill and avoiding bad hires. Not going to lie, sometimes we don't get it right every time, but we use these as learning opportunities so that the next time we find perfect candidates, we also have clauses in place that sometimes we can replace a candidate without extra cost to you, the client. Again, saving you money. We give you pre-vetted talent. We have an enormous database where we can quickly find talents who meet your requirements and have relationships with those candidates. And these are very hard to build, and that's why we build these relationships. You know, finally, our industry expertise. Our leadership has been doing this for quite some time, a collective over 100 years of experience. There isn't a role, there isn't technology that we haven't used or filled, and we're going to continue to be doing that. So, what about the future? You know, we may have worked on a huge amount of roles in the past and we've made many placements, but how are we going to adapt to the future of DevOps? You know, what are the technologies and skills that we're going to need to stay relevant? And this also applies to candidates and clients. I know I briefly poo-pooed AI a little bit there before, but there is no way that you can ignore the incoming wave that is artificial intelligence. It's an incredibly powerful tool and knowing how to use it is imperative. However, it's far from perfect. I saw a post from Andre yesterday on LinkedIn, and he mentioned how over 75% of developers report feeling productive while using AI tools. However, the data is a little bit concerning because there's a 1.5% decrease in delivery throughout and 7.2% decrease in delivery stability. We're in the infancy of the implementation of AI, and you know, I think this will ultimately change. And in the end, once AI has been harnessed properly, it will increase productivity and reliability. So stay certified, continue learning, and we're going to be doing the same. You know, there's also the emerging trend of security focus, you know, sec DevOps, with rapid adoption of DevOps and cloud-native architectures. You know, DevSecOps is evolving as a best practice, not just an option anymore. You know, security has become central to agile, fast-paced DevOps models, making DevSecOps an essential strategy for any organisation focused on secure, efficient software development. You know, with this growth, there is an opportunity for specialisation. So, however, as DevSecOps gets more integrated and more common into everyday development, the more crucial it is to continuously learn and stay accredited. As we ask our candidates to stay abreast of new technologies and techniques, we too, we're always adapting our techniques to find the best candidates. Whether it is the implementation of new search tools, or widening our search using creative means, we're always adapting to find the best talent and the best candidates. This means that when roles come out, there is a tool or a technology that we don't understand, hopefully not that many, we'll look it up, we'll see what it is, we'll try and understand it, we'll reach out to hiring managers and ask them what it is so we can speak intelligently to candidates and so we can explain it correctly and get the right candidates interested. So, hopefully that wasn't too boring. Hopefully you got a little bit out of it. So, please feel free to reach out to me. If you have any questions, now's your chance. Also, on this slide deck, if you wish to not talk now, feel free to reach out to me. I have my contact details here, and reach out to Benchmark Recruitment. I think we've got 5 to 10 minutes worth of questions. So if there's any questions, please feel free. Yes, sir.
When it comes to certifications, which one do you suggest? I mean, the vendor-specific like AWS and Azure DevOps, or like more general stuff like Linux Foundation certification? Which one could be more helpful for us to find a job?
It's a good question. What we're finding is that everything is becoming much more narrow and specialized. And if you're at the beginning of your career, yeah, having that wide net, the fundamentals is great. But as you're getting more and more of your different jobs and you're becoming more specialized, you can even get industry specific. So not just, I work in Azure or I work with these certain tools. You can use those tools, but in certain industries, and that's what we're sort of seeing there's a shift for. Gone are the days of a generalist. Everything's becoming more and more specialized.
Great, thank you.
And just to add to this, I think what a lot of employers are looking for at this point, because to your point, it's becoming very specialized as well, and it's difficult to target a specific technology, right? And if you even think about DevOps, it's really a combination of multiple technologies that you need to combine depending on the organization. So it's difficult to find the perfect match for the job. I think what really employers are looking for is the mindset, that you can actually grow and learn quickly. Right? If you are actually the one that you are open to the new technologies, the new stuff, that's what they want. Because, again, there is no perfect match. But the best people who can actually quickly learn and get onboarded and be productive are most probably the best people that employers are looking for.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Is there a greater requirement for being in the office now that you see in recruitment, and is that increasing the competition?
Do we have anybody from Amazon here?
No spies. So the question was, are we seeing people going back into the office? The short answer is yes. It's vastly more in the hybrid capacity right now, but honestly a lot of places are going full time as well. Some places are just a couple of days a week, some people are a couple of times a month. And this is a growing demographic, 100% on site. So again, if you've been holding out for that remote opportunity, those opportunities may not be as plentiful, especially in the lower mainland right now.
Alberta's fully, probably 80% all on site 5 days a week.
Yeah, with Calgary.
I'd say the majority of BC enterprise companies are 2 days a week in office.
And it's not so bad, actually, because for a lot of, especially the entry level and early stages of your career, that's most probably where you want to be. You want to be actually with people, learn from them, not just staring in front of the screen. That's just from my own experience. There is a dynamic. There is actually the dynamic when you're actually seeing the real people and you start collaborating. It's different than you've got actually the flat screen and two-dimensional person. So there's pros and cons. I think the best organization they're like in the middle.
I just have a question about the things that you mentioned. Who is the hiring manager, what they need, and I have another question. Is there any policy about following up with them after applying or after any kind of interviewing, like 1 week after first interview, 1 week after apply? Do you have any specific policy for that?
That is very much depends on the hiring manager. Some hiring managers are incredibly open to you reaching out to them, and during an interview they'll say, hey, if you have any questions, reach out to me. Others like having that boundary of having HR or a recruiter as the conduit between you and them. So there's no hard and fast rule. However, what I would say is tread carefully, because these people are also incredibly busy. When you're working 12 hours a day and then you're taking half an hour to do an interview, that time is precious, and they will get back to you. It just may take a little bit of time. And I sympathise from the candidate's point of view. It really sucks when you have to wait a week or you have to wait 2 weeks. But sometimes you do have to trust the process. But look, like I said, if they say, hey, reach out to me, talk to me, I think you totally can.
And is there any way to find fake job posting? Because some of them coming with great and huge name. I don't want to no offense to anyone and any company, but how we can find, is it for real and they are interviewing for real, or you are just a victim for their process?
It sounds too good to be true, it generally is. Don't trust anything that comes to you via WhatsApp, please. Please don't.
No, not that one.
But, and some of them are very good, and I'm not going to lie, but any time where someone asks you to make a deposit for a laptop or something like that, you've got this job, please just run away as quickly as possible. But sometimes, sometimes it's obvious, other times it's really cool.
No, honestly, in this special case, let me share one of my experience.
Sure.
I had an interview with one of the famous company around the world, not just in Canada, okay? And my friend referred me there, and I went for the first interview with the hiring manager. Honestly, on the first interview, I saw that person is not too interested about interviewing and talking with me and all those things. And after months, they rejected me, and when I asked my friend, how was the position, how it's filled, and they told me, okay, they need someone to just maybe as a victim and refill the process to show the government and the system, okay, we interviewed with like 50% and choose this person. They specified the person before the interview, okay? And
that happens, that does happen. You're trying to identify the talent before the job actually comes up. That's actually pretty common. You're not supposed to take it personally. You can actually take it as a bit of a compliment that you're being earmarked. And what's good about there is that if that is actually true, you're building your network. And if they liked you, yes, you may not have been selected at one time, but the next time that they're actually going to be hiring for that position, you're already ahead of the game. You've already been interviewed once. You've already been vetted. So take it as a compliment.
thank you.
Oh, we're out of time. Okay, one more. Okay, one more. This gentleman.
Question about your agency. Most of the HR agencies, they carry different type of contracts. It's usually incorporated to the payroll contracts. And some of those, I have a bad experience working with this agency because some of them take a big piece of cake with you, Some of them, I don't know, maybe you don't want to share information what percentage you take, but it's fair enough. I mean, you don't want to share it. But the question is, do you carry more specific incorporated contracts, or are you mostly focusing giving people payroll contracts?
So there are a couple of things here. So yes, we do deal with people that incorporate, that go into sole proprietorship, but we also deal with people that do payroll. When it comes to our cut, generally that's what we've negotiated with our client. So we try and, if it's, I know that with WorkSafe it's fixed, and we can only charge that amount. So we have, and I'm open with what our cut is because we have to stay below a certain amount. And so I'm open with you, if you want the best chance, this is where you have to be. I generally try to steer people to being incorporated or sole pro because your cut will be bigger. If you do end up going with payroll or T4, you will be earning less. Yes, you're going to be getting certain types of benefits, but technically you're going to be earning less.
Yeah, and so, because for some HR agencies, like, do you control how much, let's say, the agent keep it for himself and give it to the client, or they just randomize numbers? I'll tell you, because like in my personal experience, like I get at the same position with the same roles to two different agencies, and if I got a guy call me saying, hey, this is $75 an hour, I'm gonna give it to you. I'm like, okay, cool. After 1 hour, the same guy, another guy calling me from another agency, same position, same description, everything was $50 an hour. Hell, they just get a quote for $75, and you offer me 50. Like, why is that?
So that can just be a problem with communication, especially with large accounts. There are multiple agencies, and there's a mad rush. And we have 2 minutes to look at a role, look at a job description, and work it out. And we try and get the best talent as quickly as possible. Sometimes people are misinformed, and also some agencies have different margins to others. So that may be.
So thank you very much. We are out of time at this point, so thank you very much. And it's still here, right? So you can always ask a question after the presentation. In the meantime, we are going to move to PagerDuty and Sid Verma. Over to you.
While I get set up here, can I say a quick show of hands? How many students do we have in the audience? Okay. Half a new student. New student? New grad. Okay. New grads and students. We'll just put those in the same category. Okay, cool. How many people are looking for a job roughly in the job market right now? Okay, good. This is good. I can use this. Okay, because this is important. I promise it is. I have 2 goals for this entire presentation. The first one is this room is, I think, at like a toasty 70-ish degrees. I want to keep you all awake. That is one of the goals I have. The second goal is ideally is you walk away with knowing what full service ownership is, but let's stay awake and then we'll see where we get to. I'll start off by saying this is my second time in Vancouver. I'm from the States. My first time in Vancouver, I was 19 years old. And I'd come over here and Tap to Pay just first came out for the first time. The feature with your card. And Tap to Pay was really exciting because you didn't have to insert your card, and that was revolutionary for some reason. But I came over here and I really wanted to go to a bar, and so I got my first drink. I thought Canadian whiskey, Crown Royal was Canadian whiskey in my mind, 19 years old. So I was really excited to take it back to the States where the drinking age is 21, and I was saying, we can. I drank in Canada, I got a drink at the bar, but then I started thinking to myself, as I was paying for this drink, I said, what if the transaction didn't go through? Now, how many steps are involved in this transaction? Well, first, I have a Chase card, I'm pretty sure it's like MasterCard or something. It has to clear with MasterCard, and then there's some database lookup that says, okay, this customer actually exists, the funds are actually in an account, the transaction runs to debit the money out of my account, put the debt up into my credit card, and then check the credit limit, and some other stuff happens, right? What happens if that process goes wrong? And then more importantly, what if that process doesn't just go wrong for me? What if it goes wrong for all the POSs that are linked to the system? What if it goes wrong for all of MasterCard? How do people respond to this outage, if this outage exists? And then what paths get taken to escalate this? And then that got me kind of on this rough topic of full service ownership. So, like Andre was saying, the world is increasingly changing. It's becoming more digital. Today, I got here with an Uber. I called on my phone a car, I summoned it to my location, it magically arrived, I got in the car, I didn't exchange any word with the guy that was driving me to destination, and I magically appeared here. I also use Whole Foods from time to time as well. Whole Foods is great. It's a wonderful service, right? I can order my groceries and I can go pick them up curbside, and they're magically also there. The world is increasingly digital, and whether we like it or not, it is also extremely fast. And so that means things like services staying up, how often they stay up, the amount of time they stay up for, and whether or not our customers are happy with that, matter increasingly. And that's part of where full service ownership comes in. So let's talk about impatience. We all have it, and this graph kind of demonstrates it. If your service does not respond under 1 minute, 81% of you are likely to leave that service. Isn't that crazy? If under 30 seconds, 50% of you are not likely to stay within that service. Let's contextualize that, right? If you open up a YouTube video right now on your phone, tell me how many of you would stay if it doesn't load within 30 seconds. Probably none of you, right? We are very impatient people inherently. If under a minute, most of us are gone and we're gone to a different service entirely. We're on Google looking up another way to get to that video, or we're on TikTok or something else. Right? The amount of time that our services spend being up matters. It matters very concretely here, but these at times can be free services. It matters a lot more when it's in retail, right? There was a survey that came out, I can't name the name of the major retailer, but they had a, I think, hour-long outage, and they lost about $10-ish million. This has a very concrete thing, repercussion to the amount of revenue you generate. This is where full service ownership kind of comes into play. So our culture is changing, right? It used to be we outsourced a lot of these things to IT, right? You build a piece of software, you build a service, you outsource it to IT, you kind of code it and forget it. Right? This is not the PagerDuty way, but this is what it used to be. And then we get a little bit better to, we are keeping the development of this process in-house, but then we are outsourcing the operations of it entirely, right? We code something, and then we send it to a different team entirely. They take care of it. It really doesn't matter how it works. And then we get to full service ownership, and I promise I will get to what this means in a second. Okay, so what is full service ownership? The $1 million question. It's not a thing you can hold. It's not tangible. It is an idea. It's a methodology. So full service ownership means that you feel empowered with the software that you build, meaning you all as engineers. You feel empowered to say that this is something that I build, I ship it, I deploy it, and I take responsibility for maintaining it. The maintenance part is the big key here. Maintaining software, as we all know, is not easy, and it also requires breaking down silos as well. Okay, so demonstrating what I was talking about here, these three things in the cycle, very well established. We're all kind of used to of being able to code something, test it, and deploy it. It's taught in schools for the students that we see here. And for most of the software development lifecycle, it's pretty common. But this managing aspect is fairly new. And we're going to break down kind of the individual aspects of this. So what it means to be on call, right? When I assume some of you in the audience heard PagerDuty, you kind of cringed a little bit because that's the service that kind of bugs you during your downtime. And then we'll talk about detecting and fixing issues. Like Paul was mentioning, AI is very key here. And how to learn and improve. We'll talk about blameless culture and retrospectives and what that means to create psychological safety within teams. Okay, so being on call. I'll speed through this because I assume a lot of people here have been on call, but if you have not had the displeasure of being on call before, it basically means you are available 24/7, especially for a tier 1 service. Show of hands, how many people have been on call before in this room? It sucks, doesn't it? What was that?
I'm on call this week.
You're on call this week. Thank you for coming. I'm so sorry. Are you guys using PagerDuty?
Yes.
Oh, okay. It's a great service, I promise, but it does its job, and that's why things work. You may be contacted at any time as the SME owning the service, and you share this on-call rotation between a lot of engineers that you're paired with in the team. You're also notified through ideally a Slack channel or some sort of notification service of when an alert happens. And you're also expected to act and own the issue. And as you can see, this slide says a lot more things. I summarized to act and own. We'll talk about what that means in a second. Okay, so two of the metrics that we look for in on-call, sort of the ownership of on-call rotations. We look at MTAA, that is mean time to acknowledge, and MTTR, mean time to resolution. So an acknowledgement basically means someone has taken ownership over the issue. What this doesn't mean is that you transferred the issue to someone else. This doesn't mean that you've reassigned it, you've escalated it, it means that someone has taken ownership over the issue and can say, hey, I understand what the scope of the issue is, I understand what needs to happen to fix it, I haven't fixed it yet, but I know kind of in the wheelhouse what I'm doing in order to fix it. And in meantime resolution is just the other aspect of it, is how long it actually takes to fix the issue that comes up. This is a very nice slide that kind of that wraps things up here. Full service ownership, it empowers engineers to have responsibility for their code in production, leading to high quality software. Let's go over some best practices. So we'll talk about communication, the compromise that it takes to implement full service ownership, the commitment it takes, and also how it's all about relationships. So for some background, I'm a dev advocate right now at PagerDuty. In the past, I was a PM at Notion. A little bit before that, I was an EM at Notion. A little bit before that, I was an EM at Synopsys. This is stuff that is pretty table stakes. And it's very important in order to have a successful team that can implement full service ownership, which will reap dividends in the long run. So communication, right? Your team will not be successful unless your team is deeply in touch with each other. And that means you are cross-pollinating knowledge. For the EMs in the room, I would encourage that your team does this, that you have knowledge sharing sessions. It consists of compromise. So you will not get everything you want out of the box with full service ownership. You will not get your leadership buy-in saying, hey, you can own end-to-end this entire service. You're responsible for it entirely. And we'll talk about that in a second as to what the snowball effect looks like, but that's not something you'll get out of the box. Commitment. You're on call right now. It's a Tuesday. You are committed to that service being up. This takes effort, right? I assume you're part of a larger team, and the engineers around you are also committed to keeping that up, and you can escalate. Commitment is a big piece of the on-call rotation. And relationships. Relationship, I think, is the biggest part of full service ownership. Recognizing that it's not just engineering, but it's biz dev, it is product legal, it is your infra teammates, it is making sure that this service doesn't just live with you, but you are the SME of it, and building those relationships to ensure that when something goes wrong, you can lean on people to make sure that it gets corrected. I'll skip over this slide. I think we're all aware of how Agile methodology works. If we're not, please come see me afterward. I will talk about it for too long. Start small. This is a big key, and this is where I see actually most people going wrong with full service ownership. So I myself, I tried doing this at Synopsys when I first became an EM and I had the responsibility of leading a team. I tried to take on the world. I tried to implement a lot of these objectives of full service ownership right out of the box. Starting small is very key. We'll talk about how to do it with greenfield versus brownfield projects, but ultimately, I would say start with an end goal in mind and recognize that it's milestones that gets you to full service ownership, to owning a service entirely. And make sure you have attainable goals in the short term. Greenfield versus brownfield. TLDR for this, it is a lot easier to implement full service ownership in a brownfield project. Essentially, brownfield projects are projects that already exist. Greenfield projects are brand new projects that don't have the space already scoped out. Okay, this is my favorite slide, mostly because I like cats a lot. Psychological safety is very key. We work in tech, things move fast, there's a lot of revenue attached to a lot of deals. When we break things, people get annoyed, people get angry, and then fingers start being pointed. Right? We can't really be good at what we do unless we are psychologically safe. What does psychologically safe mean? So, right, like, if I feel as though I can make a mistake comfortably, right? If I can fail and my teammates won't blame me, if I can fail comfortably, and if I can fail with the ability to learn from it, that's part of blameless culture. There's a lot more details at postmortem.pagerduty.com, and I would encourage you to go read it if you don't already implement blameless culture, but this is a huge part. This pays dividends down the line, because without blameless culture, you aren't giving really your engineers the freedom to be able to express what they need to be able to express kind of the full scope of their thought. Okay, practice makes perfect. I won't talk about this slide all too much. This is a little bit obvious, but as you kind of build this muscle of failing, which is strange because we all want to fail less, you'll get better at being able to respond to outages. You'll do a much better job of being able to react to services going down, and you'll, as a team, get stronger as well. And I would say the failures won't ever slow down as you expand the amount of services that you have, as your team expands. But what will go stronger is the amount of team cohesion that you have over time. And so this is a very important aspect of full service ownership as well. So I've talked about I think the ownership and the full aspect of it, but let's talk about defining a service a little bit more. So a service can be a lot of things, right? It can be a monolith, it can be a microservice, it can be a piece of functionality, it can be internal tooling, components, some shared infra, or a feature. Ultimately, these are not prescriptive definitions that I can give you. These are definitions that you kind of come to a conclusion with your team. And there's a couple things you have to keep in mind with these definitions, and I'll go through them. So as we define it at PagerDuty, a service is a discrete piece of functionality that provides value to a team, or it provides value and is wholly owned by a team. This is the piece about shared understanding. Right? We want to be able to broadcast our understanding of what that service is, and we want to make sure that all of our cross-functional stakeholders are also bought into this definition that we have established of a service. This is not just your engineering counterparts, but also your PM, your product legal, infra folks. They need to all be bought into this definition of the service in order to make sure that they understand what you're responsible for. Okay, this is the not so fun part. In order to make sure that you own a service end to end, you want to make sure that you set up a good on-call rotation. I would recommend looking to PagerDuty for this if you haven't already. But the TLDR of this is set up your on-call rotation. It will make sure that your services stay up, and we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail as we go on. Service definition. So this is a very important part that I also skipped over when I was an early EM over at Synopsys. But defining what your service is a very key attribute of making sure that your cross-functional stakeholders understand what your service is and also how to go about fixing issues as they come up in that service. So if your service is, let's say, more infra-related, let's say you have, I don't know, PG Balancer is something that's within your responsibility, or some Postgres database, whatever it might be, that needs to be in your service definition so that infra folks, when it comes to an issue resolution, understand that, hey, when this service is down, I need to do more memory allocation to a certain service rather than go fix it some other way. What about monoliths? Okay, so I've worked for some big companies that love monoliths. Monoliths are the bane of a lot of engineers' existence. I wish I could tell you the kind of secret sauce to decoupling monoliths. I can't, but something I can help you to kind of make this easier is understanding that monoliths can be decoupled when you start looking at how to monitor the services. So at the end of the day, the monolith will have some sort of logging or metrics or ability. If we kind of work our way backwards from what is being logged, what metrics are being logged, and what we're being kind of measuring this monolith against, we can start to understand the individual components within that monolith. And we can work our way backwards to making sure that the individual components are sliced and that we can start getting full service ownership. The key here is that we don't want to own the monolith, we want to own the individual services. We also want to make sure that the individual teams within that monolith own the microservices that create it all together. We'll skip over shared responsibility. Let's cover service documentation as well. So documentation is a very important aspect. As when I was leading the Notion public API team, we didn't have documentation to start with. We actually expected folks to come across the API kind of naturally through Postman, but we were going to serve it. And we were hoping that people would understand how to use it as they explored it. This is not ideal. You want to make sure that your cross-functional stakeholders are aware of what your service does, how it works, and also be able to document it pretty effectively. And again, I'm not saying you have to get this all done tomorrow, but starting small and having that snowball effect and working your way towards that end state is pretty key here. All right. Some of the descriptions to include in the service description is, what is the intent of the service? How does this service deliver value? What does it contribute to, and how does it impact customers? That last piece is quite important because that's ultimately what generates revenue. We'll talk about service availability here as well. I touched on this in the beginning where I was talking about Tier 1 and Tier 2 services. So generally speaking, we want to make sure that all of our services are tiered in some way. Before I get ahead of myself, let's go to the next slide. Cool. Tier 1 services are typically services that we expect a 24/7 uptime on, and you will be on call for these. These are the services that if something goes wrong, very similar to my example at the beginning of not being able to pay for my drink when I was 19, you will be awakened for these services. For these services, you should have a clear runbook, you should have a disaster recovery plan, and you should also have multiple failovers and levels of robustness. 2 and 3 are a little bit easier. Then we get into 12, 18 by 5 uptime plans. These typically follow support escalation paths where they go through customer support and success, and then we can go through SMEs to escalate. These don't have to be escalated directly to an SME. And these are also typically supporting functionalities where the critical paths are not totally carved out. We can carve them out as we build and as we refine the definition of our service. And these also apply to new services that we've kind of minted within the team as well, that aren't maybe generally available to the public yet. Runbooks are also very key. Runbooks are essential to being able to keep a service up. They're a set of automated tasks that you can take that bring back your service to life. I have been very guilty of writing very long runbooks. They have been pages and pages long because I have convoluted kind of some definitions within that runbook. I would recommend learn from me, make runbooks very composable. If it's how to restart, let's say a database, make just a runbook that says this is how you restart the database. And then you can link that to another runbook and you can compose them from there. But having runbooks very convoluted in definitions makes them not composable, which makes reading them kind of a nightmare. I've sat on the other side of this as well. I would recommend, if you're an IC in the room, talk to your PM counterparts and make sure that they have a really good understanding of what it means for your team to have ownership over a service, and also what it means concretely to you as an engineer. Because you will be responsible for taking stuff that's within backlog, you will be responsible for responding to outages, and make sure that your PM counterpart understands that you are also bogged down by some of the stuff that comes up during your on-call rotations and carve out time for it. I would also encourage you all as EMs to talk to your PMs to make sure that they have time for this carved out as well. And this is one of the most important things and why it's very important to start slow with your full service ownership journey. You want champions. This is going to start with you, ideally, and it will grow hopefully within your company pretty substantially. So being a champion for full service ownership means that you have first a good understanding of what full service ownership is. You feel very comfortable with kind of the attributes about it. You start slow, but you prove value very early on with these brownfield projects, with these small wins. You get the ball rolling, you get some exec alignment, you prove to executives, you prove to directors that this is something that is worth doing and that we should start tearing down monoliths. And you will ideally get to the end state of having full service ownership. And I'll give you some tips for scaling. Onboarding is very key. Now, onboarding in traditional sense, not so much. You should all obviously onboard your engineers as you should, but onboarding teams is very important. If you own a service, how does another team interact with that service? Do you feel like you own that service very comfortably? Part of onboarding is when another team is interacting with, let's say, an API that you've built, do they have a good understanding of what subservices that API interacts with? Do they have a good understanding of how that is documented? What engineers to reach out to when that service goes down? So that's part of onboarding. The second part is shadow the on-call service. I would really encourage, this is mostly applicable for the EMs in the room, that if you have other engineers that haven't been on an on-call rotation, whether that be for a service that they don't directly own or just generally, encourage them to shadow and on-call. I know it can be a nightmare at times shadowing on-calls, but I would encourage them to do it because you learn a lot when you shadow on-calls, not just from a how to respond to stuff, but what stuff is worth responding to and how to respond to it, how to use runbooks. And then practice empathy. I spent some time talking a lot about psychological safety. This is a big key, especially at the pace that we all work at. Empathy is very important when it comes to being able to create a psychologically safe environment. I won't touch upon this too much just because we're running a little bit short on time, but talk to me afterward and I'll talk about empathy. I have 2 more slides yet. I hope everyone's still awake. Let's talk about automation and AI, the big buzzwords. So I have to plug PagerDuty a little bit because that's where I'm from. PagerDuty does a wonderful job of being able to kind of foresee what things will go wrong and when they will go wrong. And it's very generic, but let's say you connect a service and you want to monitor and get insights from it. PagerDuty with machine learning will be able to tell you, hey, this number of services going down or this log that we've seen in the past has resulted in a service outage. And so the next time the outage occurs, or the next time that the certain log comes in, it'll be able to tell you, hey, a tier 1 outage is about to be triggered. And then we can also leverage push-button automation as well, which you define the runbooks that PagerDuty should execute on, and it will go about executing every single one of those sub-services or commands that kind of run through to bring your service back to life. If it doesn't come back to life, then it will escalate to any one of the engineers in the team. That's the end of my presentation. I would encourage you to go to ownership.pagerduty.com to learn more. And I'm open for questions now. Okay, I'll go to the back first. Yes?
Yeah, my question is, according to your presentation, and the full ownership, like we develop, we deploy, and we manage and operate it. If you have a big company, you develop over 10 applications, how can you manage your time to handle all of this in your one team?
Are you an EM or are you an IC? Are you an engineering manager or are you
And the
developer? Okay. I love the vibe behind this question because I feel like you already want to do this, which is great. It's a good question. I think I would recommend talking to an engineering manager that is very closely tied to the projects that you're working on. Kind of mention that this is something that can be interesting to you and that's something that you want to start implementing in the team. Full service ownership really is it's a cultural change. Finding time for this is a bit of an uphill battle, and you have to prove the value of it with existing projects before you start implementing any new projects. We have another question right there.
That was very idealistic. My question is basically, well, like, I forgot. We're just chatting. But like I've been in the on-call locations before, and it's a lot of times just like, the feedback of like, or sorry, the tracking of how many instances they are, and they're like back into the process of pushing out work, for example. And like I think like Google, their methodology is now like an error bucket or something like that. If you consider that. If anything I said made sense.
I'm going to try to summarize it, and then you tell me if I'm right. So ultimately, being on call creates more work, and then the question is, has there been a consideration for having an error bucket to basically catch all of the work that's been created?
Or to push that, like if you're getting paged like 5 times a night, for example, perhaps you should slow down development or something. or have somebody else responsible, like an engineer?
Right. If you're getting paged 5 times a night, I think that's a different discussion, right? I think one, we should probably go back to the tiering aspect of things, right? Are the 5 pages, are they worth you waking up for them? Are they truly tier 1 services?
In my case, I was working for a Amazon contracting company.
So they probably were.
So like literally me getting woken up is providing value to the client and showing them it's going back to the client because I'm waking up and feeling that they're out of memory service, which should be bumped up. We can't because you don't want it.
So you were being woken up to, just so I'm understanding this, to configure ultimately a server.
Literally, I restart a service without memory because it's purposely being restrained by its memory because we don't own the service. You're being paged for it to manage it.
I mean, ideally, I'd recommend some automation in that piece, right? I mean, like, I would recommend that if you're waking up and changing a com file, then like, you should probably automate that process.
No, you literally have to log the system and like it get reboot button.
Oh my gosh, okay. Let's talk after, because I need to get a better understanding of the entire architecture before I can confidently say like.
That's just a pattern repeat though. Like it's just like your ops staff, which DevOps is kind of part of it, right? Gets thrown onto the on-call and there's like no recognition that like there's cost to being woken up in the middle of the night, and that perhaps you need to have feedback into like the rest of the organization a little bit. Like,
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I see what you're saying by it being aspirational, and I do agree, it is. I think this is where executive alignment comes into play, and like getting that buy-in from VPs, from directors of, hey, I don't like waking up in the middle of the night, it doesn't really add value to myself, and ultimately this is stuff that I can automate. But I think I need to get a better understanding of your situation specific before I can commentate on it a little bit more.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Great presentation. So I have a question around the false positive alert from PagerDuty. So let me just give a brief about the architecture. So it's a Ruby on Rails project running side gig to do background jobs on ECS, and on every node you have the Datadog agent, because doing all the whole thing is trying to do. And when, for instance, a container, like maybe run out of memory, automatically just quit, because Datadog is going to pick that up. And PagerDuty was actually added to Datadog, which means Datadog actually spins up the PagerDuty to make the call. And we kind of getting a lot of false positive calls because eventually the containers would actually self-heal and then spin up again. So how would you resolve such issues?
Okay, so I'm going to try summarizing that. You had Ruby on Rails running EC2, Datadog was alarming from there, and that was notifying PagerDuty. PagerDuty was falsely reporting, alarming you guys. Who set up your PagerDuty? That's the $1 million question, right? I think I need to start there.
So actually, the PagerDuty, when I did set it up, but the PagerDuty was actually added into Datadog. For Datadog, you have a dashboard, you have all these other things that even though you want to use another like login device, without using Datadog, you can actually add all of those things to it. So PagerDuty was actually added, right? And the goal of that is to respond, because ideally, the Datadog is monitoring dashboard. That is where you go to see what's going down, the memory and all of that. Because the agent, does PagerDuty have agents that runs in node?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so because that is what the Datadog agent does in the nodes, right? Which are EC2 containers, right? The EC2 instances. So then the PagerDuty actually, right, responds to what is happening with Datadog, right? So if you're a person and you're looking at it, you would see the load go down and you see the spin up back. You seconds there, right? But because I'm not human, PagerDuty is there. What is happening in the PagerDuty is actually making a call.
So Datadog will recover, and I apologize, we're getting to a little bit of debugging here. So Datadog, the service goes down, it will recover the service, and in that meantime, it will alarm PagerDuty?
No, Datadog does not recover
Or the service recovers?
It could be auto-scaling, right?
Okay.
It could go up or go down, right? So when you spin up a backup process using the manual, sometimes the container could actually crash, right?
So sometimes like the container could actually crash, and when that happens, right, the Datadog is going to show that, okay, this node crashes, or let's just say, for instance, auto-scaling is going up and going down, so which is normal, but what is happening is that PagerDuty sees that and automatically just keep alerting. So there's no issue with the setup actually. If that makes sense.
That sounds like really good feedback for product. That's what that sounds like. Because if we are tightly integrated with Datadog, then we should be able to be notified when this is auto-scaling versus alarming. The good news is, just if I can pause for a second, we have an account executive from PagerDuty in the back, Andy, yeah. And we also have Casey. Yeah, he's a solution architecture for PagerDuty as well.
We had to turn it off, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I think that's a really good point, right? If you're falsely alarming too much, turn the thing off. No one wants to wake up in the middle of the night for no reason. If it's not working as it should be, then let's fix it before it gets worse.
Yeah. Well, perhaps it could be good for a monolith application.
Right? Oh, absolutely. But no one likes monoliths.
We're using ECS, right? And we were not just only tracking our nodes, because those will, auto scale, right? And we also have to track the containers, right? Like, just like a normal pod in a Kubernetes environment, but in this case we're using ECX. So I just wanted to see if there's a solution to that problem that we didn't know.
I really wish there was. I haven't personally had the displeasure of coming up against that problem, but that sounds like a nightmare, so let's get that fixed.
Hi, I'm just wondering about trends. So you talked about the full service, right? So basically, based on your diagram, many people should eventually learn lots of languages and learn different things, and basically eventually become like DevOps, right? DevOps, they have more knowledge, and there are even companies that are trying to security, which is DevSecOps, and now people are talking about platform engineering, which is like putting everything. So do you see those kind of trends in full ownership? Like everybody basically should be supervised, like knows infra, database, developer, security, and everything, or they are still separated by different teams based on the role? How is the trend becoming?
Yeah, so I'll give you my bad answer first, which is it depends from company to company. More concretely though, I think what this means is more from like a cultural shift is, do you feel comfortable being a member in your team, being able to rely on the services that you have to keep up, looking to the person next to you and saying, hey, if I'm on vacation, if I'm on call, whatever it is, and I need to bring this other person in, can they still act as a subject matter expert in this topic? Right? And whatever that kind of encapsulates is up to your service definition, is up to your company, but is what you're doing, is it documented? Is your knowledge documented? Is the way you bring a service back up documented? And can that be transferred to the next person? That can mean for your organization, hey, I need to go talk to some infra person to go put the service back up again. I need to go talk to someone who's responsible for my CI/CD pipeline to fix an issue on deployment. But I wish I could answer that question for you concretely. I can't. I don't know enough about your organization. We can talk later and I can learn more about it, but that's kind of the general answer I can give you.
Yeah, thank you. I had a quick question about, at the end you mentioned about AI and how PagerDuty is using AI for, can you go to the slide? I can't remember what it said exactly.
It'll take a while.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. It's my slide deck is too long. Okay, there we are.
Yes, so you're using AI to predict failures before they occur. Just wondering, is PagerDuty an APM then? Is it used as an entire monitoring tool, or is it more on the alerting side? Because I've used PagerDuty before, but only really in an alerting for alerting reasons, not for monitoring. Like we would link it to AppDynamics, and then we would use webhooks to send to PagerDuty when we have alerts. And I think maybe that might answer a question about Datadog as well. I'm not sure whether the alarming is configured on Datadog side and maybe is not a PagerDuty thing. But yeah, what are you doing with AI? Can you talk a bit more about that and how it works?
Sure, yeah, so a couple of questions there. I'm just going to divide them into two, right? So first, is PagerDuty an application monitoring service? I think PagerDuty in the most typical sense, and I'm going to call it PagerDuty Classic, is the annoying thing that sends you a notification on your phone and wakes you up. I think as we evolve as a company, we are getting to the point where we do become or have some attributes of an APM. I'll actually allow Casey to answer this question in a little bit more detail. I'd love for you to talk to him because I'm not close to the integration side, on the APM side. With AI specifically though, when it comes to being able to ingest logs, log normalization, and then being able to read those logs and be able to predict what will happen next, that's something that we're pretty invested in. And that's where, like, I think the kind of hand-wavy AI is thrown on generally for a lot of products, as we all know. This is more completely machine learning, though. Right? This is being able to take the logs that you have coming in, detect a pattern based off those logs, and create some sort of statistical correlation of what will happen next. And in this case, it's, hey, I've seen N number of outages occur based off of the logs that have come in on this service. Now, the next time that happens, the next time I see those logs, I can prompt a user, or as PagerDuty itself, I can say, hey, this is a tier 1 escalation, or I can see how it's treated down the line. So that's kind of the AI investment that's happening right now. There's other investments that are happening in like the generative AI space when it comes to like how we treat alerting and all that fun stuff. But I think this, more concretely for a DevOps space, is where it fits in best.
Okay, thanks.
Let's talk about that.
Good. First off, thank you for the presentation. And from my perspective, I see full software ownership is when you self-host everything. Like, and what if the pager goes down, for example, for some reason?
What if we go down?
Yeah, if there's no.
Oh, that's not fun.
Yeah,
that's not a good day for anyone.
And if, for example, I can set up the Prometheus with Grafana and set up all these alerts myself, can I replace the PagerDuty? These pages are.
If you're asking me if you can replace PagerDuty,
yeah. Isn't it going to be like the truly full ownership of the software because you're actually responsible for the uptime because you self-host it?
So keeping in mind that PagerDuty still signs my paychecks, I'm going to try to answer your question the best I can because I would recommend keeping PagerDuty. However, I also encourage you to own a service end-to-end. Now, alerting, which is one part of what PagerDuty does, is a very small part in this full service ownership journey, right? I think if you were to, short answer is yes, you could. Long answer is I wouldn't recommend it because there's reliability and uptime that has to be solved with PagerDuty as well. Can you replace it with like Prometheus plus log normalization plus Twilio? Sure, maybe. But Do I think that you will be abiding by full service ownership? I think you still will, but I don't think it will be as scalable as what PagerDuty can offer. It's kind of my short answer.
Okay, thank you.
Just to also address your question, you said what if PagerDuty goes down? So during the CrowdStrike outage recently,
for example, yes.
Right, we experienced, what was it, like I think 1,400% more instant workflows for our customers, like volume coming in, and we as a platform didn't go down. So we're built for the enterprise for resiliency, so you can check that out. But that's why customers trust us, because we're there for a crisis. When things happen, we're there. Right? And that's why we build a platform, and that's why it's really more difficult for people to replicate something that we have built for its purpose.
A good TLDR is that PagerDuty is a tier 1 service for tier 1 services. So we have failover instances for pretty much everything that can happen. We aren't bound to, I think, one specific cloud hosting platform either. So in situations where there are outages, we are not impacted. I did my job. I kept everyone awake. Wonderful. So thank you very much, Sid. Thank you very much, Paul. They are still here, but there are teams as well, so we'd like to continue conversations and get a little bit more detail. We still got a couple of minutes. So thank you very much to presenters. Thank you very much to you guys for attending today's event. And if you would like to be one of the speakers and you've got topics, interesting topics that you'd like to share with the rest of the community, please approach us and we'll be happy to schedule you during one of the next events. Thank you very much, everyone, and good night.